You're scrolling right now, watching stories, checking posts. You saw your friend's vacation photos, your coworker's promotion, your ex's new relationship. You absorbed it all. But here's the thing. When was the last time you posted anything? If it's been weeks, months, or even years, you're part of the silent 90%. And psychology reveals that your behavior isn't random. There's something deeper going on in your mind that most people will never understand. Welcome to Rare Psyche. Today, we're uncovering the psychology of social media lurkers, the people who watch everything but share nothing. These are the ghosts of the internet. They're always there, always watching, but you'd never know it. And here's what's fascinating. Researchers estimate that 90% of people in any online community consume but never create. That's the 90-9-1 rule. 90% watch, 9% occasionally react, and only 1% actually post regularly. So if you're a lurker, you're not the exception. You're the norm. But what does your silence say about who you really are? Let's dive in. First, let's define what we're talking about. A lurker isn't someone who's never heard of social media. They're active users. They log in daily, they scroll for hours. They know exactly what's happening in everyone's lives. But they rarely, if ever, post, comment, or even like anything. Their profiles are digital ghost towns. Maybe a profile picture from 2019, maybe not even that. Their last post? Probably from a time when selfie wasn't even a word yet. But don't mistake their silence for disengagement. These people are hyper-engaged. They notice everything. The subtle tension in your group photo, the friend who stopped commenting on your posts, the pattern in who you're tagging. They're watching, analyzing, and cataloging information, while the rest of us are busy performing. Psychologists call this observational learning, a concept developed by Albert Bandura. The idea is simple. You can learn far more by watching others make mistakes than by making them yourself. Lurkers are the ultimate observers. They're not participating in the chaos, they're studying it. One researcher described it perfectly. They're using social media as a living laboratory for understanding modern human behavior. While you're arguing in comment sections, they're quietly taking notes on crowd psychology, social dynamics, and the theater of digital performance. And here's the uncomfortable truth. They might understand you better than you understand yourself. So, what makes someone become a lurker? Psychology has identified 8 distinct personality traits that these silent observers typically share. Let's break them down. Trait 1. Introverted curiosity. Research from the University of Central Florida found that introverts turn to social platforms mainly for information seeking, not broadcasting. They engage in extended browsing, bookmarking, and note-taking behaviors, basically treating Instagram like a research database. For introverts, social media is energy, efficient voyeurism. They get to observe human nature without the exhausting back and forth of actual interaction. They're not shy, they're strategic. Why waste energy performing when you can learn by watching? Trait 2. High cognitive empathy. This one surprises people. Lurkers aren't emotionally detached. They're often deeply empathetic. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that people learn empathic reactions largely through observation. Lurkers quietly run these circuits, decoding moods, alliances, and subtexts without revealing their own. They absorb other people's stories and reflect privately. Many will send thoughtful, private messages to friends in crisis, but would never comment publicly. Their empathy is inward, facing, processed in silence. Trait 3. Perfectionism and fear of judgment. A 2023 study of over 2,000 Chinese undergraduates found that passive social media use predicted higher social anxiety scores, while active posting predicted lower anxiety. Translation: posting feels like stepping onto a stage where every flaw is magnified. For lurkers, every potential post goes through a mental board. Will this be misunderstood? Will people judge me? Is this interesting enough? Eventually, the safest option becomes posting nothing at all. It's not laziness, it's self. Protection from a world that feels perpetually critical. Trait 4. Privacy vigilance. Lurkers value control over their personal information. By choosing not to post, they maintain autonomy over what others know about them. They can consume content, keep up with trends and friends, all while maintaining anonymity that active posters have forfeited. They're acutely aware of data breaches, algorithmic profiling, and the permanence of digital footprints. One person I know uses social media daily but keeps her profile picture as the default icon. She's not hiding. She's simply refusing to surrender control of her narrative to an algorithm. Trait 5. Observer personality orientation. Some people are wired to watch rather than participate. These analytical and empathetic individuals prefer to understand social dynamics before engaging. Psychologists link this to self, monitoring, carefully adjusting behavior based on social context. They gather cues first. They notice what gets rewarded, what gets punished, what causes drama. By the time they might consider posting, they've already seen 10 people make the same mistake and get roasted in the comments. Why take that risk? Trait 6. Low need for external validation. Here's a key insight. Research in personality psychology shows that people who are more self-secure and less approval-seeking often feel no need to post about their lives. Their self-esteem isn't tied to likes, comments, or digital validation. They understand a profound psychological truth. Attention is not intimacy. You can have thousands of people watching you and still feel alone. Conversely, you can feel deeply connected to someone who never posts about you publicly. Lurkers choose the latter. Trait 7. Information overload management. A 2024 study nicknamed Left on Red found that information overload and social comparison feed lurking through a cycle of reflection, fatigue, and selective engagement. Lurkers experience cognitive overwhelm from the constant stream of content. They've learned that endless scrolling leads to analysis paralysis, so they consume selectively, carefully, and without the additional burden of contributing to the noise. They're practicing appropriate attention, absorbing what helps and discarding the rest. Trait 8. Preference for real-world connection. This is the most counterintuitive finding. Research indicates that many social media lurkers are actually more comfortable with face-to-face interactions. The digital world isn't their comfort zone for genuine expression. They observe on social media platforms, but when it comes to truly engaging and expressing themselves, they prefer the traditional offline route. They'll text you privately, they'll call, they'll meet you for coffee, but a public comment? That feels performative and hollow. For them, real connection happens in private, not in public comment threads. Here's what makes lurkers fascinating and maybe a little unsettling. They notice things that active users completely miss. While you're crafting the perfect caption, lurkers are decoding the subtext. They notice the friend who used to comment on everything but suddenly went silent. The couple whose body language looks tense even in their happy photos. The person who only posts when they're trying to prove something. The quiet unfollows and subtle social shifts that signal drama brewing. People with strong observational tendencies tend to form more accurate judgments about others, and they use that knowledge strategically. They're not judging maliciously, they're just aware, deeply, uncomfortably aware. One psychologist described lurkers as having high private self-consciousness, a trait linked to people who spend more time in internal dialogue than external performance. They're constantly processing, analyzing, and connecting dots in ways that active posters simply don't have the bandwidth for. And because they're not invested in their own online image, they have the mental space to truly observe yours. It's like being the only sober person at a party. You see everything with crystal clarity, while everyone else is caught up in the moment. But lurking isn't all wisdom and detachment. There's a shadow side that psychology has identified. Passive use increases depression. Research shows that passive social media browsing fuels upward comparisons, which correlate with dips in mood and self-worth. When you only consume other people's highlight reels without sharing your own reality, you start believing everyone else has it figured out while you're struggling alone. Social isolation spiral. While lurkers may prefer real-world connection in theory, many find themselves isolated in practice. They don't engage online, but they also don't reach out offline. The observation becomes a substitute for participation. They know what everyone's doing, but they're not actually part of anyone's life. Analysis paralysis. The more you observe, the more you see ways things can go wrong. Lurkers often overthink every potential interaction until the safest option is no interaction at all. This can lead to a passive, spectator approach to life, watching other people live instead of living yourself. The performance fatigue paradox. Ironically, lurkers often feel exhausted by social media even though they're not posting. Watching everyone else perform is draining. They sense how easily it pulls people into performance, crafting ideal versions of themselves instead of showing reality. So they refuse to participate. But they also can't look away. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. In many ways, lurkers might be the healthiest users of social media. Research from computers and human behavior found that many lurkers experience less stress, less envy, and more control over their emotional state than heavy posters. Another study suggested that non-posters often score higher in conscientiousness and self-reflection. Think about it. They're not checking their phone every 5 minutes to see if anyone liked their post. They're not spiraling because a photo only got 30 likes instead of 300. They're not performing for an audience they'll never meet. They've opted out of the validation economy entirely. And in doing so, they've reclaimed something precious: their privacy, their autonomy, and their peace of mind. Carl Rogers, the renowned psychologist, once said, "When someone really hears you without passing judgment on you, without trying to take responsibility for you, without trying to mold you, it feels damn good." For lurkers, this listening, or in this case, reading, serves a dual purpose. It allows them to understand and empathize with multiple viewpoints, while also giving them a sense of belonging in digital communities without the pressure of performance. They may not actively participate, but they are very much part of the conversation, silently, thoughtfully, on their own terms. So, how do you know if you're a lurker? Here are the signs. You log into social media daily, but haven't posted in months or years. You watch everyone's stories, but never post your own. You have strong opinions about what people post, but never comment. Your profile picture is outdated or a default icon. You prefer private messages over public comments. You notice details about people's posts that others miss. You feel drained by social media but can't stop scrolling. You value your privacy more than your visibility. If more than 4 of these resonate, welcome to the silent majority. You're not broken, you're not anti-social. You're just operating by a different set of rules. The psychology of lurkers reveals something profound about modern digital life. Not everyone wants to be seen, and that's okay. In a world that equates visibility with value, choosing silence is almost rebellious. But it's not weakness, it's often wisdom. It's understanding that attention is not intimacy, that your worth isn't measured in likes, that real connection happens when you close the app and look someone in the eye. So if you're a lurker, know this: you're not missing out. You're simply watching the world scroll by, reflecting, learning, and living life on your own terms, offline, where real connection still matters most. And to everyone else, the next time you notice someone quietly watching from the sidelines, don't assume they're uninvolved. They might just be the wisest person in the feed. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. Or don't. I'll understand either way. Subscribe to Rare Psyche for more psychology that explores what others won't. You're not alone in your silence.